In a secure data lab, a quantum AI begins piecing together the forgotten notes of archaeologist Klaus Schmidt. His work at Gobekli Tepe changed history.
And I think it's clear now that Göbekli Tepe itself was the end of a process. It was something that brought together the best of everything that they'd accumulated.
But his research at a nearby site, Gürcütepe, was left unfinished. The AI sifts through thousands of handwritten pages, sketches, and cryptic symbols that Schmidt never published. Suddenly, it flags a pattern. A series of astronomical alignments so precise they defy explanation. What many overlooked was that Schmidt may have found something world-altering, a secret he took to his grave. Now, that secret is finally coming out. The lesser-known sibling. Just a few miles away from the world-famous site of Gobekli Tepe lies a cluster of unassuming mounds known as Gürcütepe. To put it mildly, it's the forgotten little brother of Gobekli Tepe. While tourists and archaeologists flock to see the towering pillars of one, Gürcütepe has remained a quiet, dusty collection of hills that barely rise above the surrounding farmland. Excavations at Gürcütepe began in the late 1990s, led by local teams and the legendary German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, the very man who brought Gobekli Tepe to the world's attention. What they found there seemed at first to be exactly what you'd expect from a village of that era. The site dates back to the pre-pottery Neolithic period, roughly 11,500 years ago, the same time that its famous neighbor was thriving. But the thing nobody tells you is that the two sites couldn't be more different on the surface. While Gobekli Tepe was clearly a grand ceremonial center, a cathedral on a hill, as Schmidt himself called it, Gürcütepe looked like a simple domestic settlement. Archaeologists uncovered the foundations of rectangular houses made from rammed earth, a mixture of clay and soil packed down to create sturdy walls. They found hearths where families cooked their meals, storage pits for grain, and simple tools made of flint and bone. It was a picture of everyday life, the kind of place where the world's first farmers settled down, cultivated wheat and barley, and herded sheep and goats. There were no massive T-shaped pillars, no terrifying animal carvings, and no signs of the grand rituals that made Gobekli Tepe so mysterious. Because of this, for years, the official story was that Gürcütepe was just a small farming village, perhaps a support settlement for the pilgrims and priests who gathered at the great temple nearby. It was the suburbs to Gobekli Tepe's grand cathedral, a practical, boring but necessary part of the ancient landscape. It seemed to fit the old timeline perfectly. First came farming, then came villages like Gürcütepe, and only then did society have the resources for massive projects like Gobekli Tepe. But Klaus Schmidt, a man with a rare gift for seeing patterns others missed, spent years working at both sites. He knew that the story wasn't that simple. According to colleagues, he was meticulous in his work, filling thousands of pages in his field notebooks with detailed sketches, measurements, and personal thoughts. He documented everything, from the tiniest pottery shard at Gürcütepe to the most massive pillar at Gobekli Tepe. When Schmidt passed away in 2014, he left behind a mountain of unpublished research, a treasure trove of raw data and private observations. For years, these notes sat in archives, accessible only to a handful of trusted academics. They were seen as a valuable but dense collection of an archaeologist's life's work. No one suspected they held a secret that would challenge everything we thought we knew, not just about Gürcütepe, but about the very dawn of civilization. The shocking truth was hidden in plain sight, scribbled in the margins. A new eye on ancient mysteries. A decade after Klaus Schmidt's passing, technology had taken a leap that sounded like science fiction. You see, a new and powerful tool was emerging: quantum AI. To put it simply, this wasn't your average computer program. Traditional AI works step by step, but a quantum AI can look at millions of possibilities all at once. It's designed to find hidden patterns in massive, messy data sets, like financial markets, weather systems, or, in this case, thousands of pages of handwritten archaeological notes. The idea to use this technology came from a team of researchers tasked with a monumental job: digitizing Schmidt's entire archive. They carefully scanned every page of his field journals, every hand-drawn map, and every cryptic note scribbled in the margins. It was a slow, painstaking process. What many overlooked is that Schmidt's handwriting was difficult, and his notes often jumped between technical data and personal speculation. A human would need years to properly cross-reference everything. But for a quantum AI, it was the perfect challenge. Once the digital archive was created, the AI was let loose. Its mission was threefold. First, it was to scan for recurring patterns. This meant finding any symbols, architectural terms, or measurements that appeared repeatedly across Schmidt's notes on both Gürcütepe and Gobekli Tepe. The thing nobody tells you is that a human researcher might remember seeing a symbol once or twice, but an AI can track hundreds of occurrences across thousands of documents in seconds, noting every subtle variation. Second, the AI was programmed to cross-reference everything with a massive database of other Neolithic sites across the Middle East. It had access to every published paper, every known carving, and every architectural plan from sites stretching from modern-day Turkey to Iraq. It could compare a doodle Schmidt made in a margin at Gürcütepe to a formal carving found hundreds of miles away, something no single archaeologist could ever hope to do. Finally, the AI was tasked with anomaly detection. Its job was to flag anything that didn't fit. Why would a symbol associated with a grand temple like Gobekli Tepe appear on a simple clay pot in a farming village? Why would Schmidt use a word like alignment when describing a simple house foundation? The AI wasn't programmed to understand history. It was programmed to find what was out of place. To be clear, the team didn't expect to find a smoking gun. They hoped the AI would simply make their work easier by organizing the data and maybe pointing out a few interesting connections they had missed. It was an experiment, a way to test if the most advanced technology of the 21st century could shed new light on the world's oldest mysteries. What they got was something far more shocking. As the AI processed the data, it began to connect dots that had been separated for over 11,000 years. It wasn't just finding patterns. It was revealing a hidden language, a secret conversation that Schmidt himself may have only partially understood. The machine was seeing ghosts in the data, ghosts of ideas, of forgotten knowledge, and of a story so big that Schmidt may have been afraid to tell it. The first results were so strange the team thought it was a glitch. A warning across millennia. The first shocking discovery came in the form of a simple recurring symbol. The quantum AI flagged a series of sketches in Schmidt's Gürcütepe notes, abstract shapes he had jotted down next to descriptions of pottery fragments and house foundations. To a human eye, they looked like meaningless doodles, but the AI, cross-referencing them with its vast database, found a near-perfect match. These symbols were almost identical to carvings found on the massive T-shaped pillars at Gobekli Tepe. This was impossible. Gobekli Tepe was supposed to be a unique ceremonial site, a place apart from the ordinary world. Gürcütepe was just a simple village. And yet, here was evidence of the same symbolic language, a shared system of belief connecting the Grand Temple to a humble settlement. It was like finding the blueprints for the Vatican, hidden under the floorboards of a farmhouse. But it got even stranger. The AI found these same symbols appearing in notes from other Neolithic sites across the Fertile Crescent, suggesting a vast, interconnected network of cultures sharing a complex symbolic system, long before anyone thought possible. But the AI wasn't done. It then flagged a series of handwritten notes in Schmidt's private journals, words he had never used in his official, peer-reviewed papers. Terms like pillar alignment, astral orientation, and celestial marker appeared again and again, circled and underlined. You see, Schmidt was publicly a very cautious and data-driven archaeologist. He would never make a claim he couldn't prove. But in private, his notes showed he was considering something radical. The true WTF moment came when the AI analyzed a series of rough sketches Schmidt had made of the Gürcütepe settlement layout. They seemed like simple maps of house clusters. But the AI overlaid them with astronomical charts for the region from 10,000 BC. The result was breathtaking. Several of the main structures at Gürcütepe appeared to be perfectly aligned with the rising and setting of specific stars and constellations, particularly the belt of the constellation Orion. The thing nobody tells you is that this kind of archaeoastronomy is incredibly controversial. But here was potential evidence from the founding father of Gobekli Tepe research himself. The AI pieced together what Schmidt had likely suspected but never dared to say out loud. Göbekli Tepe wasn't just a place to live and farm. It was an observatory, a calendar carved into the very landscape. Its buildings were designed to track the movements of the stars, just like the larger, more obvious structures at Gobekli Tepe. The two sites weren't a temple and a suburb. They were two parts of the same ancient machine, a massive, interconnected complex designed to map the cosmos. This discovery was so profound because it meant the builders of these sites possessed a knowledge of astronomy and engineering that was thousands of years ahead of its time. They weren't just primitive hunter-gatherers who got lucky. They were sophisticated sky watchers, encoding their knowledge of the heavens into their sacred and domestic spaces alike. The AI's final and most terrifying finding came from a series of notes Schmidt had written in the last years of his life. He connected the astronomical alignments at both sites to a specific date, roughly 11,600 years ago. And next to these calculations, he had written a single chilling question in German. Warning. The word for warning. The machine had found a hidden message, a warning from the past. A truth too big to tell. Why would Klaus Schmidt, one of the most respected archaeologists of his generation, keep such a monumental discovery to himself? The answer, it seems, lies in a deep-seated fear of academic ridicule. To put it mildly, the world of archaeology can be brutal. Proposing a radical new theory without ironclad proof is a quick way to have your career torn to shreds by your peers. And what Schmidt was contemplating was the most radical theory of all. You see, the idea that prehistoric people had advanced astronomical knowledge is often associated with fringe theories and so-called alternative history. For a mainstream scientist like Schmidt, even hinting at such a thing could have been professional suicide. What many overlooked in his public interviews was his careful, measured tone. He always stuck to the data, to what he could prove. He described Gobekli Tepe as a cathedral on a hill, a ritual center for hunter-gatherers. He never publicly spoke of star alignments or cosmic warnings. The quantum AI's analysis of his private notes, however, paints a picture of a man torn between what he knew he could prove and what he deeply suspected. The AI flagged phrases like, "too speculative," "await further data," and "not for publication," scribbled next to his most shocking astronomical sketches. It was as if he was leaving a trail of breadcrumbs for future researchers, hoping that one day, with better technology, someone could prove what he could only guess at. This is where a chilling possibility emerges. Was Schmidt silenced? Not in a dramatic, conspiratorial way, but by the rigid, self-policing nature of academia itself. He knew that if he went public with his theories about Gürcütepe and Gobekli Tepe being a massive cosmic clock, he would be dismissed as a crackpot. His life's work at Gobekli Tepe, which was already rewriting history, could have been jeopardized. The thing nobody tells you is that this happens all the time in science. Researchers who make discoveries that are too far ahead of their time often face backlash. Think of Galileo, who was condemned for suggesting the Earth revolved around the sun. Schmidt was facing a similar dilemma. He had stumbled upon something that didn't fit the accepted story of our past. Rather than risk his reputation, he documented his findings in private, creating a time capsule of ideas for a future generation to uncover. The reaction from the archaeological community to these new AI-driven revelations has been predictably divided. On one side, younger researchers and those open to new technologies are calling for an immediate re-examination of both Gürcütepe and Gobekli Tepe. Did a lost, advanced civilization leave us a warning written in stone and stars? And if so, have we finally become smart enough to read it? Let us know your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more hidden history.